And I'm sympathetic to the fact that this council is in a tough spot. You're in a contract with a private company. I've read the contract. I have a copy of it. You're in a contract. And you may hear evidence, you may hear statistics, as Ms. Baez very competently pointed out, that are very easily skewed, saying that these things stop traffic accidents, that they cause traffic accidents. This is my position on the traffic accident issue. I don't care. If you pass an ordinance requiring that every citizen in the city of Victorville install cameras in their homes, in every single room, including the restrooms, you could significantly reduce incidents of domestic violence, incidents of child abuse, incidents of sex offenses, right? And we could all pat ourselves on the back and say, look at the good job we've done. We put cameras in every single person's house, and we reduce crime. And while that would be great to reduce crime, to what end? To what cost? You would be violating your citizens' rights by putting cameras in their house. So at some point, the government, this government, all government, has to recognize where the line is. These cameras are over the line. To recognize that by this council would be this council supporting its oath to get rid of these cameras. You've taken an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the state of California. And these cameras violated. If any of you were to go to court for any reason, whether a civil reason or a criminal reason, you would all demand that your rights be respected. Whether it's civil, whether it's criminal, whether it's a traffic ticket. Any one of you would demand that that court recognize your rights. Your right against self-incrimination. Your right against your confrontation. Your right to confront and cross-examine your accuser. There's an entire evidence code that your city attorney, I'm sure, has a copy of that talks about the ways in which evidence is properly admitted for consideration before a court of law. If any of you were in court, you would demand that that evidence code be followed. If one of you were accused of a crime, you would be appalled if the judge allowed Mr. Kennedy to come to court and say, well, I wasn't there when Mr. McCackern did whatever they're saying he did, but Ms. Baez said that she heard from Mr. Cox that Mr. Cox's friend saw him do it. So you should find him guilty, Judge. You would be appalled if that were the state of the law and that were the way in which evidence was admitted. Now that's a ridiculous, overreaching example, but that's what calls this into focus. You have to look at these overreaching examples to bring this issue into focus. What we have before us is an issue where the court in Orange County and Los Angeles have both reviewed the issue and decided that it violates the citizens' rights the way in which this evidence is presented to the court. It's very simple. In order to get a hearsay statement, that would be Mr. Kennedy saying Ms. Baez told him that something occurred when he's not actually a witness. In order to get that before the court for consideration, there has to be an exception to the evidence code. This is simple law school stuff. It should be giving the city attorney nightmares back to law school and studying for the bar exam. Very simple. There must be an exception. There's two exceptions that possibly apply to an issue like this. The first is business records. Is the document a document that is kept in the usual course and scope of that company's business? Well, you look at the red light camera pictures and you may say yes. It is a document that's kept within the usual the usual course and scope of Redflex's business. Here's the problem. That business records exception specifically excludes evidence that is kept and maintained for the purposes of litigation. A Redflex camera citation or a Redflex camera photograph is taken only for the purpose of prosecution. It is a record, a document, prepared with an eye towards litigation. If you're in a civil case with a bank, you can compel the bank to bring the documents to court and show all kinds of documents, bank statements, records, interest paid out to people, interest collected from people. And the documents can be presented and considered by the judge. What could not be considered is a letter from one bank official to another that was specifically prepared because they knew they were about to get sued, that is chalking out some kind of a defense. You cannot admit that as a business record. Any documents that are prepared with an eye towards litigation or for the purposes of litigation are not admissible under business records. So business records is out. The next exception that's a possibility is official records. Official records would apply to the contract between this council and the Redflex Corporation. It's a document that is prepared, maintained, and is housed here in this building and can be provided by the city clerk. The court would look and say, this is a document, the contract, this is a document that is part of an official record. It's prepared, it's maintained, and it's handled by a government agency. Redflex is a private agency. It is not a government agency. And therefore, the official records exception does not apply. Right? Those are the only two ways these videos come in. There's no other way that they come in. The court in Orange County, and as I understand, it's an unpublished case, but the court in Los Angeles have both come to the same conclusion. Now you ask yourself, how does that affect us here in San Bernardino County? A decision out of Orange County is not binding upon San Bernardino County. So Commissioner Singer does not have to follow that decision. He can ignore it. However, I will tell this council, if you want to look to a higher source for consideration, Redflex petitioned the California Supreme Court to order that that case be depublished. In order for a case to be cited, I apologize, I don't know if any of you are attorneys, and if you are, how many? In order for a case to be cited by an attorney, in order for me to go in and say, Your Honor, I'm asking the court to follow the precedent laid out in Orange County versus Khalil, the Orange County case, in order for me to cite that as law, it must be what's called a published case. The Orange County Appellate Court published that case, making it citable for other attorneys to use that in court. Of course, Redflex did not like this, because now attorneys can waive that case and say, here is my sword and my shield for my client. You must not convict my client of this red light ticket. Redflex went to the California Supreme Court and petitioned the California Supreme Court to depublish the case so that attorneys could not legally cite that case as law. The California Supreme Court refused to depublish and declined their request. That's cited in the California Supreme Court minutes. Anyone liking to do research can simply search through the Supreme Court the casing that's being presented, I believe, and it already has been presented to the council. You can look that up and see it's public record. So where we're at is that these red light cameras, first of all, they're not popular with the citizens. I don't know anyone, I've never spoken to anyone, and I speak to a lot of people in this community who say, oh yeah, the red light cameras, I'm all for them. Maybe there are some people out there. Everyone I've spoken to is against them. Now, if I were elected by the people, I would say to myself, you know, everyone hates these red light cameras, and I'm coming up for re-election. I want to be the guy whose face is on the newspaper leading the charge to get rid of these things. I mean, let's be practical about it, right? You're all elected. I'm sure you want to be re-elected. It's simple. Everybody hates these things. That's reason enough to get rid of them as elected officials right there. So let's play out the possibilities with these red light cameras. I understand you're in a contract. I took contracts. I don't practice contract law, but I took the class and I kind of understand. You're in a contract. So you keep the red light cameras. Eventually, myself or one of the other attorneys in this community are going to get a case. We're going to sneak one by the trial court. And we're going to get a case up on appeal. And the appellate court is going to rule just as the other appellate courts have around the state. They don't have a choice. They're going to rule and they're going to strike down these red light cameras. And when they do, I'm going to team up with a civil attorney who knows that arena, and I'm going to file a class action lawsuit seeking to have everyone's fines and fees that's ever been prosecuted for a red light ticket returned to them.
Hear, hear, hear.
I went to law school because there was no math, so I carried a calculator. When the chief had his numbers up, based upon his numbers, I computed that in a 6-month period, there was $1.3 million in fine revenue received from those cameras. If the cameras had been snapping pictures from 2007 at that rate, you're talking about almost $3 million a year. If a suit was successful, a class action lawsuit was successful, ordering all those fines and fees to be returned, you're talking, first of all, about an ungodly amount of money. I hope very much that I have a percentage contingency here. Yes. And you'll never see me again. I'll retire anyway. And it's going to be a huge burden on this city and on the state and on everybody involved, and there's going to be egg on everyone's face, practically speaking. If this city council puts an end to this madness and gets rid of these cameras, I will never get a case up on appeal because there won't be any more cases to go before the court to get up on appeal, to get them overturned, and you will thwart me for being able to file my civil suit, a class action suit, thereby evading the possibility that you ever have to refund all this money. Now, I'm sure the citizens would much prefer to see the money refunded, but again, I'm a practical guy. It seems to me that if I were in your position, I would be saying, listen, Orange County is already done with this. Los Angeles County is already done with this. The California Supreme Court refused to depublish the case, which could be taken to mean that the California Supreme Court supports that decision and they want it published. And if that guy who came here the other night is right, that he could file some kind of a civil suit and recoup all that fine money, this is going to be a fiasco. This is going to be a mess. Let's just shut the cameras down. It'll save us having to refund the money. Possibly. Maybe we'll lose. Maybe you won't have to refund it. I don't know. Possibly. It'll save you having to refund that money. It'll make a large portion of the citizens of this community very happy to see those things go away.
Hear, hear.